Good evening and welcome back. Tonight we're taking a closer look at one of the most consequential and controversial moments from Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing, a moment that cuts straight to the heart of leadership, military readiness, and the role of women in America's armed forces. If you want clear, no-nonsense breakdowns of major political moments like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Hegseth, thank you. Thank you for your service. So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions, so we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono, and I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print. So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards.
No,
standards are what it's always been about,
let's not
Senator.
have this same fight again.
Always been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013 because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards? That they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult
Let me make a
for everybody
suggestion
involved.
about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat. Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk with you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because
You can
it's
think
not
about it
one
right
that,
now.
It's not one, my motivation for this job
I understand
has never
that. I
been
just
about
need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be
In
at the Defense
other
Department.
words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years, but you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the
Oh,
president
I'll
is.
bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Tuberville.
During the hearing, Senator Elizabeth Warren didn't waste time on pleasantries. She opened by laying out the scope of what's at stake. The Secretary of Defense doesn't just manage budgets and strategy. They oversee nearly 250,000 women currently serving on active duty across the Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and Marine Corps. Warren's argument was simple but serious, that leadership at that level requires trust, respect, and credibility with the people who serve, and she made clear she believes Pete Hegseth fails that test. What made this exchange stand out was how methodical it was. Warren didn't rely on anonymous sources or secondhand allegations. Instead, she built her case using Hegseth's own words, on camera, in print, and over more than a decade. That matters because confirmation hearings often turn into battles over interpretation. Here, Warren framed the issue as a pattern, not a slip of the tongue. She began by taking viewers back to 2013, when Hegseth told Fox News that women in the military couldn't measure up to men, and that allowing women into combat roles would force the military to lower its standards. That argument, that inclusion equals lowered readiness, has been one of the most persistent talking points in debates over women in combat, even as multiple Pentagon studies have found no evidence that integrating women has weakened performance standards. If you're finding this kind of context helpful, take a second to subscribe. It helps the channel grow and ensures you keep getting analysis that goes beyond the headlines. Warren then pointed out that this wasn't an isolated view. In 2015, again on Fox News, Hegseth repeated the same claim, warning that women in combat would erode standards. Fast forward nearly a decade, and the language changes very little. In June 2024, on Ben Shapiro's podcast, Hegseth said flatly that women should not be in combat at all. No qualifiers, no nuance. And then there's the book. Warren cited passages directly from Hegseth's own writing, including a line that says, "We need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units."
On another page, he argues that women shouldn't serve in combat roles because men are distracted by their presence. That claim isn't just controversial, it directly contradicts the lived experience of thousands of mixed-gender units that have deployed, fought, and returned home over the last 2 decades. This is where the exchange shifts from ideology to leadership. The modern U.S. military already includes women in combat roles, a policy adopted after years of study, testing, and real-world experience. The question Warren is raising isn't theoretical, it's whether someone who has repeatedly argued that a large portion of the force doesn't belong there can credibly lead them. If you want more deep dives like this into how policy debates actually affect real people, make sure you're subscribed. Warren also highlighted something else that often gets overlooked: time. These statements span more than 10 years. That undercuts the idea that they reflect youthful ignorance or a single controversial moment. Instead, Warren framed them as a consistent worldview, one that hasn't meaningfully evolved even as the military itself has changed. And that's the larger lesson here. Confirmation hearings aren't just about resumes, they're about values. They're about whether a nominee's past words align with the institution they're being asked to lead today. In this case, Warren wasn't just challenging Pete Hegseth on policy, she was questioning whether someone who has publicly dismissed women's role in combat can effectively command their confidence, their respect, and ultimately, their service. As this confirmation process continues, exchanges like this one will likely shape how senators and the public judge Hegseth's readiness for the role, and we'll be here to break it all down, clearly and honestly. If you appreciate reporting that explains what you're seeing and why it matters, don't forget to subscribe. More coverage, more context, and more insight is coming up next.